The courtroom hummed with an electric tension that morning. Sunlight filtered through large windows, casting sharp shadows across polished wooden surfaces. Kim Woo sat quietly, his hands folded neatly on the table, looking completely calm despite the extraordinary circumstances surrounding his hearing. Judge Park Jae-yun adjusted her glasses, her stern gaze fixed on the defendant. The case file before her seemed ordinary at first glance, but the details were anything but typical. Kim Woo, a 35-year-old researcher with an impeccable professional record, was about to make a statement that would shock everyone present. When asked to identify himself for the official court record, Woo took a deep breath. His voice was steady, almost mechanical in its precision. "I identify as a horse," he stated. A collective gasp rippled through the courtroom. Whispers erupted like small explosions of disbelief. Court stenographers paused, their fingers hovering uncertainly over their machines. The prosecutor, a middle-aged man named Park Sung-min, looked momentarily stunned. Woo didn't flinch. His dark eyes remained focused, his posture perfectly composed. He wore a crisp navy blue suit that seemed tailored to emphasize his professional demeanor. Nothing about his appearance suggested mental instability or eccentricity. The court clerk fumbled with documents, uncertain how to process such an unusual declaration. Judge Park leaned forward, her expression a mixture of confusion and professional curiosity. "Could you elaborate on what you mean?" she asked, her voice calm but firm. Woo nodded. He understood the gravity of the moment. This wasn't just a personal claim. It was a potential scientific breakthrough that could challenge everything known about human consciousness and identity. Medical records had been thoroughly examined. Psychological evaluations showed no signs of mental disorder. His professional credentials were impeccable. A senior researcher at a cutting-edge neuroscience institute with multiple published papers in respected international journals. The room felt heavy with anticipation. Lawyers shuffled papers. Observers leaned forward in their seats. Something unprecedented was about to unfold, and everyone could sense it. A digital display behind Woo flickered to life, showing complex neural mapping diagrams and scientific research references. It was as if the technology itself was preparing to support his extraordinary claim. Outside the courtroom, news crews had gathered. Reporters whispered and speculated. This was no ordinary legal proceeding. This was a moment that could potentially redefine understanding of human identity. Woo remained calm, his hands still folded, waiting for the next question. He knew the journey ahead would be complex, challenging, and potentially revolutionary. His entire research career had led to this moment, a radical demonstration of human potential and scientific innovation. Judge Park cleared her throat. The room fell silent, waiting for her next move. The air felt charged with possibility, uncertainty, and the promise of something entirely new. This was more than a court hearing. This was the beginning of a narrative that could change everything humans understood about consciousness, identity, and the boundaries of scientific achievement. Kim Woo sat quietly, a small smile playing at the corner of his mouth. He was ready. Dr. Lee Hai-won entered the sterile white evaluation room, her professional demeanor masking her intense curiosity. Kim Woo sat at a simple metal table, his hands resting calmly in front of him. The room was designed to be neutral, with minimal distractions, perfect for psychological assessment. She opened her tablet, reviewing the preliminary notes. This was no ordinary evaluation. Woo's claim of identifying as a horse had already created waves in scientific and legal circles. Her job was to determine his mental state, but she suspected this would be far more complex than a standard psychological examination. "Mr. Kim," she began, her voice professional yet not unkind, "can you explain your statement about being a horse?" Woo's response was immediate and articulate. He spoke about neural mapping technology, describing intricate details of consciousness transfer that seemed more like science fiction than reality. His explanation was so precise, so logically constructed, that Dr. Lee found herself leaning forward, genuinely intrigued. He described a government research program that explored the boundaries of human consciousness. Neural interfaces, he explained, could now potentially allow complete mental restructuring. It wasn't about physical transformation, but about a fundamental rewiring of cognitive patterns. The doctor noticed something remarkable. Wu's brain scans, displayed on a holographic screen, showed neural pathways that were distinctly different from typical human brain structures. Unusual connections sparked and danced across the image, suggesting something truly extraordinary. How did this happen? Dr. Lee asked, her professional curiosity overriding her initial skepticism. Wu explained a series of experimental procedures. Advanced neural interface technology had allowed researchers to map and partially transfer consciousness between different biological systems. He was the first successful human subject to maintain full cognitive function after such a radical procedure. As he spoke, Dr. Lee conducted a series of cognitive tests. His problem-solving skills were exceptional. Spatial reasoning tests showed patterns more consistent with equine cognitive processing than human. Yet he remained articulate, intelligent, and completely self-aware. The psychological evaluation became something more. A journey of discovery. Each question revealed layers of a complex scientific breakthrough that challenged everything known about human consciousness. Wu demonstrated an understanding of both human and equine cognitive processes. He could describe horse behavior with scientific precision, explaining neural responses that went far beyond simple animal behavior research. It was as if he truly existed in a space between two different conscious experiences. Dr. Lee recorded everything. Her professional detachment was slowly giving way to genuine scientific excitement. This wasn't a case of mental illness. This was a potential revolution in understanding consciousness. The hours passed quickly. Each test, each conversation peeled back another layer of this extraordinary case. Wu remained calm, cooperative, and incredibly articulate. He wasn't just claiming an identity. He was presenting a scientific paradigm shift. As the evaluation neared its conclusion, Dr. Lee realized she was witnessing something unprecedented. This wasn't just about Kim Wu. This was about the future of human consciousness, about the potential to transcend biological limitations. Her final report would be critical. It would determine not just Wu's legal status, but potentially open doors to entirely new scientific understanding. Wu sat quietly, waiting. He knew the significance of this moment. The future of scientific research, of human potential, hung in the balance of this psychological assessment. Dr. Lee looked up from her tablet, meeting Wu's steady gaze. Something extraordinary was happening, something that would change everything. The evaluation was complete, but the real journey was just beginning. Deep within a government research facility, classified documents began to reveal a story more complex than anyone could have imagined. The Neural Consciousness Transfer Project, codenamed Horizon, had been running secretly for nearly a decade. Kim Wu was not an accident, but the culmination of years of intense scientific research. Dr. Park Sung-ho, the lead researcher, reviewed the original project files. The goal had been ambitious: create a method of consciousness adaptation that could help humans survive in extreme environments. Initial experiments focused on mapping neural pathways between different biological systems, pushing the boundaries of human potential. Wu had been a volunteer, a brilliant researcher who understood the risks. Early trials involved simple neural connections with animal consciousness. Rats, dogs, and primates had been initial test subjects. But Wu wanted something more radical. He volunteered for a complete neural restructuring that would allow full consciousness mapping with an entirely different species. The technology was groundbreaking. Quantum neural interfaces could now create near-perfect consciousness transfers. It wasn't about changing physical form, but about rewiring the fundamental understanding of biological consciousness. Wu's brain had been carefully mapped, with specific neural pathways reconstructed to mirror equine cognitive processing. Government archives showed dozens of failed attempts. Scientists had struggled for years to create a stable consciousness transfer. Hundreds of test subjects had experienced partial transfers, mental fragmentation, or complete cognitive collapse. Wu was different. He remained fully functional, maintaining his human intelligence while gaining an entirely new perspective. Research logs detailed the extraordinary process. Specialized nanobots had been used to restructure neural connections. Quantum entanglement techniques allowed for a complete rewriting of cognitive pathways. It was like translating a complex language into an entirely new form of communication. The scientific community would be shocked. This was more than a simple experiment. This was proof that human consciousness could be fundamentally redesigned, reimagined, reconstructed. Wu represented a new stage of human evolution, a living demonstration of humanity's potential to transcend biological limitations. Classified videos showed early testing phases, Wu demonstrating extraordinary cognitive abilities, understanding complex equine behavioral patterns, processing information in ways that defied traditional human limitations. His brain could now interpret sensory information from an entirely different biological perspective. Dr. Park's hands trembled as he reviewed the final reports. The implications were enormous. This wasn't just a scientific breakthrough. This was a fundamental reimagining of what it meant to be human. Consciousness could be transferred, adapted, reconstructed. Government officials had kept the project secret. The potential military and scientific applications were too significant to reveal prematurely. Imagine soldiers who could adapt their consciousness to survive in extreme environments. Researchers who could experience the world from entirely new perspectives. Wu had known the risks. He had understood that he was more than a test subject. He was a pioneer. Each neural connection represented years of research, countless failed attempts, and unprecedented scientific innovation. The facility hummed with quiet anticipation. Computers processed massive amounts of data. Researchers whispered about the implications. Kim Wu was more than a person. He was a living scientific breakthrough. Outside, the world continued as normal. People went about their daily lives, unaware that the fundamental understanding of human consciousness was about to change forever. One man's extraordinary journey would soon challenge everything humanity thought it knew about identity, consciousness, and potential. Dr. Park closed the file. The future had arrived, and it looked nothing like anyone had expected. The courtroom buzzed with nervous energy. Attorney Kang Min-seo stood confidently, her crisp black suit a stark contrast to the emotional tension surrounding Kim Wu's unprecedented case. She knew this was more than a simple legal hearing. This was a battle that would redefine human identity. "My client," she began, her voice clear and strong, "represents a scientific breakthrough that challenges our most fundamental understanding of consciousness." The legal team from the government shifted uncomfortably in their seats. They knew the stakes were high. Neurological evidence was presented first. Complex brain scans showed Wu's neural pathways, part human, part something entirely new. Each slide demonstrated a hybrid consciousness that defied traditional biological classifications. Experts had been studying these scans for months, struggling to understand their implications. The prosecution argued that Wu was attempting to manipulate the legal system. But Min-seo had prepared for this. She called forward Dr. Lee Hai-won, the psychologist who had conducted the initial evaluation. Her testimony would be critical. "Mr. Kim is not experiencing a mental disorder," Dr. Lee explained. "He has undergone a legitimate scientific procedure that has fundamentally altered his cognitive processing." Her words carried the weight of scientific authority. Legal precedents were thin. This was uncharted territory. How do you classify a consciousness that exists between species? His identity determined by physical form, mental processing, or something more complex? Government representatives tried to suppress the full details of the neural consciousness transfer project. But Min-seo was prepared. She had obtained classified documents that revealed the extensive research behind Wu's transformation. Each page told a story of scientific innovation that pushed human potential beyond known boundaries. Wu sat quietly, watching the proceedings. He understood that this was about more than his personal situation. This was about the future of human evolution, about breaking through biological limitations. Witnesses were called. Neuroscientists, ethical experts, legal scholars, each bringing a different perspective to this complex case. They debated the nature of consciousness, the definition of identity, the potential of human adaptation. The judge, Park Jae-yun, listened carefully. Her experience told her this was no ordinary case. This was a moment that could rewrite legal understanding of human rights, scientific innovation, and personal identity. Min Seo's final argument was powerful. "My client is not attempting to deceive," she stated. "He is a living example of human potential. We are witnessing the next stage of human evolution, a consciousness that can adapt, transform, and expand beyond current limitations." The courtroom fell silent. The weight of the moment was palpable. This wasn't just a legal hearing. This was a glimpse into a potential future where human consciousness could be redesigned, reimagined, reconstructed. Government lawyers attempted to argue national security concerns. They feared the implications of such technology becoming public, but the scientific evidence was overwhelming. Wu was not a threat. He was a breakthrough. Hours turned into days. The legal complexity grew with each testimony, each piece of evidence. This was more than a court case. This was a philosophical debate about the nature of humanity itself. Wu remained calm throughout the proceedings. He understood that he was more than an individual. He was a representative of a potential future. His transformation was not an end, but a beginning. As the hearing continued, the world outside watched and waited. News agencies scrambled to understand the implications. Scientific communities held their breath. A single legal decision could change everything. The courtroom became a battlefield of ideas. Traditional understanding versus scientific innovation. Old definitions versus new possibilities. And at the center of it all, Kim Wu, a man who was both completely human and something entirely new. Justice would be more than a legal decision. It would be a statement about human potential, about the ability to grow, transform, and become something extraordinary. The courtroom fell silent as Judge Park Jae-yun prepared to deliver her verdict. Months of complex testimony, scientific evidence, and philosophical debate had led to this moment. Kim Wu sat perfectly still, the weight of history resting on his shoulders. After careful consideration, the judge began, her voice steady and clear. "This court recognizes a new form of human consciousness that transcends traditional biological boundaries." Her decision would be remembered as a turning point in human history. The landmark ruling acknowledged Wu's unique neural structure, neither completely human nor entirely horse, but a revolutionary hybrid of consciousness. The government lawyers looked stunned. They had fought hard to suppress the details of the neural consciousness transfer project. Now, everything would be exposed to public scrutiny. Wu's attorney, Kang Min-seo, allowed herself a subtle smile. She understood the significance of this moment. This was more than a legal victory. This was a recognition of human potential beyond known limitations. The judge continued, explaining the complex reasoning behind her decision. Wu represented a scientific breakthrough that challenged fundamental understanding of identity, consciousness, and biological potential. He was not a medical anomaly, but a living example of human adaptability. News cameras captured every moment. Journalists from around the world watched live as a new legal precedent was established. The implications were enormous. This could change how humanity understood itself. Scientific experts in the courtroom exchanged meaningful glances. Dr. Lee Hai-won, who had conducted the initial psychological assessment, nodded quietly. Her research had been crucial in proving Wu's mental stability and unique cognitive capabilities. The ruling created a new legal category. Wu was recognized as a hybrid consciousness entity, a designation that would require new legal and ethical frameworks. Traditional definitions of human identity would need to be rewritten. Government representatives tried to maintain their composure, but the shock was evident. Years of secret research had suddenly been exposed to public view. The Neural Consciousness Transfer Project could no longer remain hidden. Wu remained calm throughout the proceedings. He understood he was more than an individual. He was a bridge between what humans were and what they could become. His transformation represented hope, possibility, scientific innovation. The court's decision would impact multiple fields: medical research, legal systems, philosophical understanding of consciousness. Everything would be challenged and potentially transformed. As the judge finished her statement, the courtroom erupted in a mix of confusion, excitement, and disbelief. Wu stood slowly, a quiet smile playing on his lips. He knew this was just the beginning of a much larger journey. Media outlets would spend months analyzing the decision. Scientific journals would publish countless papers exploring its implications. Universities would create new research programs investigating consciousness transfer. Outside the courthouse, crowds had gathered. Some protesters, some supporters, all waiting to understand what this meant for humanity's future. Wu represented something unprecedented, a living example of human potential beyond current understanding. The landmark decision was more than a legal ruling. It was a statement about human adaptability, scientific innovation, and the endless potential of human consciousness. Traditional boundaries were being challenged, rewritten, reimagined. Dr. Park Sung-ho, the lead researcher behind the Neural Consciousness Transfer Project, watched from a distance. Years of secret research had culminated in this moment. Wu was proof that human potential was far more extensive than anyone had imagined. As Wu walked out of the courthouse, he carried with him the hopes and fears of an entire species. He was a pioneer, a scientific breakthrough, a living testament to human potential. The world would never be the same. Would you like me to elaborate on any specific aspect of the final part of the story?